Hello, and thank you for joining me on LinkedIn. My name is Mark Healy. I'm the Graduate Coach. I'm based here in Melbourne, but I travel all over Australia assisting graduates and have done for the last 8 years. I don't necessarily focus purely on internships or unpaid work. I'm always looking for more of a permanent solution for the graduates. I understand that, they have a period on their temporary visa that they have to try to secure 12 months work to gain an extra 5 points. Additionally, if they can get some regional work, they can get an extra 5 points. And these days, it's super important to be able to get those extra points in order to even apply for PR. So that's what I specialise in. Now, what I want to share with you today in the video is not necessarily some of the reasons why you won't get work in the short term without some sort of support. It's really, all the graduates believe it's resumes, or there's something wrong with their resume or their LinkedIn profile. And sure, in a few ways it might be. Typically, people, what they write reflects how they think about themselves on their resume. So if your resume is not clear, obviously, you're not thinking clearly about what you want to do. That's not really what it boils down to. The real problems are when you work in any discipline, whether it's civil, structural, process, electrical, instrumentation. What else have I missed? I think that's most of the disciplines. If you don't understand what companies are doing before you are meeting them, you're going to struggle to find work, particularly if you're networking. So, as an example, we as engineers, we work only on projects, and those projects are, vary in value. The bigger the company, the bigger the value of the project. Just an example, I've written a few here. In Melbourne, for example, there's the Metro train project, and it's worth $11 billion. You got the Bruce Highway upgrade program in Queensland, that's worth $8.5 billion. In Sydney, one of the projects is the Western Sydney Airport, that's worth $5.3 billion. And in Western Australia, you've got the Metro Net Rail project worth $1.84 billion. Now, in those sort of projects, when you're in the billion-dollar projects, you're always dealing with the really big companies, the Lendleases, the Oricons, the AECOMs, the KBRs, the Fleurs, Bechtels, you name it, they're in there. And what they do is they essentially scope the work out, break it into parcels, and give it to the other subcontractors to do the work. And sometimes those subcontractors are smaller consulting firms that do the design work, as opposed to just where you might think AECOM, for example, are doing all the design internally. They won't. They just sub you out bits and pieces as required to people who have that speciality. Now, most graduates play here. Most graduates are in this space, and it doesn't work for them. The main reason is you don't have the skills to work in those companies. Even as a graduate, I'm getting on a graduate program. Sure, if I was offered a graduate program with AECOM, why not take it? That's logical. However, I can assure you, you're not missing out on too much. I've worked in all these sort of companies before, and I have found that the best graduates come from the smaller companies who progress through to the medium-sized companies, who progress through to the larger companies over a 10-year period, thereabouts, maybe less. And they do much, much better in their career long term. In the short term, it sounds fantastic that you're working in those big companies, but you won't get the skills that you're really looking for. Now, so what do I do? Now, my job is to open your eyes up a little bit to how the industry really works, and try to explain to you that I spoke about 4 major projects in the billion-dollar value. There are many, many projects out there that could be $4 million in value, and that could be enough work for you in a small company for 6 to 18 months. And that's where you need to be if you want to get 12 months of work experience to get that extra 5 points. Now, to do that, to get that work in a smaller company, they're also under the same amount of pressure as a bigger company. Everyone needs to pull their own weight. Everyone needs to understand what they have to do. Unfortunately, I understand that you've done what you had to do to get through your course you've done so far. You've done your Bachelor of Engineering, or you've done your Masters of Engineering and Project Management, all that sort of stuff, or Engineering Management. To be honest with you, it means nothing in the Australian economy without solid work experience, whether it's a Bachelor or a Masters, because the work is extremely difficult and extremely different to what you've been taught. Now, education process has come a long way, but it's got a long way to go to catch up with industry at this point in time. And after doing this for such a long time, to give you a few examples, if you want to work in electrical engineering and you don't know what sort of work you're going to get into, then you can either work in low voltage or high voltage work. Most kids will come to me and say, I want to do power distribution. And I go, well, power distribution is covered off in Australia. It's pretty much done. What you really need to be focusing on more is where the projects are and trying to get on the projects, because the projects are dictating the type of work that people need you to do. So, for example, there may not be any high voltage distribution power going on. There might be some, but not much. There might be an enormous amount of work going on in rail, in signalling, for example, or traction, which is high voltage, and one is low voltage. But you've got to specifically go to certain areas where you can get work on it. Now, before you can do that, even though you've done your Masters and even though you've done your Bachelor, you must understand that you don't understand much about the specifics of what you're going to get into. The better prepared you are with talking to people. In other words, the more rhetoric you can speak about a subject matter and sound like you actually know roughly what you're doing. Let's say you know 50 or 60% of what's going on in the marketplace. You will be much, much more employable. So I sort of run these sort of shorter courses that ramp up your knowledge in certain areas, whether it's mechanical engineering, civil, process, electrical, etc. Any discipline. I can show you how to bridge that gap between unemployment to employment, but it does require effort from you guys. It really does require much more focus and discipline. So the first thing you have to look at with me on the program is getting a solid group of companies together that don't exceed a certain amount of people in them. You don't want to be going to the large companies at this point in time in your career, because you need to get solid experience, whether you're a citizen or whether you're an international. It's irrelevant. So I can assure you there is lots of work out there for engineers, but you're not going to find it online. Most of it, as you may or may not know, goes, offline through friends or colleagues. If, for example, I'm a mechanical engineer with a lot of experience. If I want to get work, I simply contact my friends in the industry. I ask them about their current projects. They tell me a bit about what's going on. They ask me if I'm interested. I go, I am. They said, look, send over your resume. Not that we really need it, but you can send it over anyway. I'll just keep it on file. Then we'll go through a little bit of a formality of putting you on the project. And it might take 24 hours for me to physically be sitting at a desk starting on that project. Believe it or not, you can actually do that as a graduate as well. In fact, I try to encourage you to understand that that's how it really works. In Melbourne here at the moment, there is also other things that are going on internally in larger companies such as Thales, Bombardier, any of the major projects. You'll find that internally they have internal recruitment programs. So the engineers with, say, 15 years experience, if they can bring someone into the company themselves, they'll give them $1,000 to do that. And so those engineers go out there and they're encouraged to bring people into the business with the skill sets, obviously. And they get remunerated accordingly, because recruitment is not necessarily what engineers really like in my age group. However, in your age group, unfortunately, the graduates are left high and dry. because recruiters have to be paid a fee for recruiting you, and it's usually around 15% of your first year's wage. They really don't want to pay anything for a graduate with no experience, because they're going to wear the cost of training you for the first 3 to 6 months. So the key is avoiding that at all costs, and you've got to do more yourself than you currently are aware of. So if you're looking for work and you've been looking for work for 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, and one of my students has been looking for 60 months, the reason is they're just doing it fundamentally wrong. Now, will you get work if you know what you're doing? And will you get work if you pick a sector that suits you? Absolutely. Will you get work if you pick a sector that you don't like and doesn't suit you? You may, but you'll probably struggle to convince anyone in a networking situation that you're worthy of the investment. In other words, the training that they've got to put you into. So what I do fundamentally, I'll send you through a document that sort of explains this, but it's basically I do the research with you to get a good list of companies together, develop you up with a short course in something specific that suits you, whether it's rail signaling as an example, low voltage, high voltage, traction, or signaling. And then that might take 2 months to get through that. That also, you've got to build up your words and your rhetoric and understanding what these words mean. You can't be superficial about it. You're an engineer, you're a professional, obviously. So you need to go out there and present yourself professionally. Then we contact people directly. You can do it on LinkedIn or you can do it via email. When you're a bit older, like me, you don't really sit on LinkedIn like you guys do. In fact, most of the guys will be using email mainly at work and probably don't even open up LinkedIn. So some do, obviously, most don't in the senior guys. So we have to do the research, find a good list of companies. You probably need around 50 to 80 companies that you've not heard of that are a small to medium size in any city. It's very easy to find and very easy to target those people. You have to target senior people. You have to contact them directly. Then you have to phone them, even when they're not showing any interest in you. So sometimes, the last step is meeting people. So there's a formula, research, R plus emailing or linking in, plus phoning them, plus meeting them once or twice, like becoming friends with someone. If you go through that process, and it takes around 2 to 3 months to go through that process, you should have met 5 engineers. Essentially what you've done is, you've got 5 of you looking for work. Obviously the engineers have taken the time to meet you, established that they like you, and are willing to assist you get work. Then they say, look, I don't have any projects right now, keep in touch, and I'll put you on a project as they come up. Most graduates really struggle with proper follow-up. They don't understand the timelines. They just want to get a job next week if possible. But what they don't understand is the projects may or may not come online every week. They're probably coming on every 1, 2, or 3 months. And they cycle throughout the year. They start and they're ending. They start and they're ending, depending on the size of them, of course. So I hope that's been of value to you. It's been a pleasure sending this video through to you, and I'll send you through some more information in time. For now, though, look, have a great weekend, and I do apologise for taking so long to get this information to you. If you want to get involved with me, I'll send you we have a little contract about what's in the program, how much it costs, there's payment plans and all that sort of stuff. If you're in, say, Western Australia, I would strongly suggest get about 10 of your friends together. Consider joining collectively together, and then I'll come over there and I'll do the workshops, maybe over a sustained period of a week, and then come back and do them a month later and do it again, because quite frankly, you really do need quite a lot more support than you currently are aware of in order to secure work. Anyway, it's over and out from The Graduate Coach. I'm Mark Healy, The Graduate Coach. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Bye for now.